What does it actually mean to be a man? Because right now, most men are confused. They're either told to suppress everything they feel or to dominate everything they see, but both mentalities are weak. Strength isn't loud, nor is it reckless. Strength is controlled, and Daredevil understands that better than almost anyone. Matt Murdock feels rage, he feels grief, he feels guilt, and he feels doubt. He loses his father, Elektra, his faith, and he nearly loses himself, but he still gets back up. And that's the epitome of masculinity. Not perfection, not status, not dominance, but discipline. So in this video, I'm going to break down why every man should study Daredevil in 3 defining pillars that separate discipline from chaos. One of the biggest lies that men are told is that emotions are weaknesses, so they numb them or they explode, but Daredevil does neither. Look at the rooftop scene with Punisher. Frank believes in executing criminals, but Matt refuses. Not because he's soft, not because he's naive, in fact he wants to, but he knows once you cross a certain line, you can't come back from it. He's angry, he's furious, and he's frustrated, but he doesn't let that anger dictate his moral code, and that's discipline. Most men either react impulsively or pretend they don't feel anything at all, but Matt feels everything and he still refuses to be ruled by it, and that's strength. Even during fights when he's brutal and lets the rage flow through him, there's intention and finesse behind it. He doesn't fight to prove dominance, he fights to protect the city, and that's a monumental difference. Anyone can be emotional, but very few men can be emotional and controlled simultaneously, which is why most men need to take notes. Masculinity without a code becomes chaos. Look at Wilson Fisk. Powerful, strategic, and ruthless, but he lacks moral restraint. Matt has power too, but he limits himself. He refuses to kill Fisk even when Fisk destroys Matt's whole life and turns the city against him. He didn't spare Fisk because he deserves mercy. He spares him because Matt understands what killing would do to him. He draws a line and never crosses it, and that's called integrity. A man without a code adapts himself to every situation, but a man with a code adapts the situation to his principles, even when it costs him, even when it makes his life harder, and even when it isolates him. And that's why Matt and Frank clash so hard. Frank sees violence as a solution, but Matt sees it as a responsibility. And that distinction is everything. And men should study that, because in real life, power shows up in different forms: money, status, physical strength, influence. But without a code, these things corrupt you. With a code, they discipline you. And that's the reason why Matt won. He didn't win because he's stronger, he wins because he knows when to stop. Here's the part where most men fail, so lock in. They think that strength means never breaking, but it doesn't. In Season 3, Matt collapses physically, spiritually, and mentally. He questions God, justice, he even questions himself. He isolates, pushes everyone away, and spirals. And that's real. Every single man eventually has to go through this, but the difference between them and Matt is what he does next. He trains again, he rebuilds, he recenters, he redefines his purpose, and he doesn't blame the world forever. He doesn't stay broken, and he chooses discipline again, and again, and again. That's masculinity. It's not never falling, but it's refusing to stay down. Most men avoid discomfort and become complacent in their mediocrity, but Matt walks into it. He lets the pain refine him instead of define him, and that's growth. Now here's the part most men don't want to hear. Daredevil isn't attractive because he's mysterious. He's not compelling because he fights well, but the truth is, he's compelling because he's controlled. Because he suffers and doesn't use it as an excuse, because he feels deeply and still holds the line, because he breaks and rebuilds, and that's what women respect, and that is what men should aspire to be like. Not the violence, not the suit, but the discipline. You don't need to be Daredevil, you don't need to fight criminals and bounce around your city like you're a goddamn extra at Cirque du Soleil, but you do need control over your emotions, a code that you refuse to violate, and the ability to rebuild when life breaks you down. And that is masculinity, whether you like it or not. It's not about who's strongest, fastest, smartest, or who has the most money. These are just add-ons. As a man, your responsibility is simple. Leave things better than how you found them. Not by changing the world overnight, but by improving yourself daily. Even when it's inconvenient, even when it's uncomfortable, and even when nobody sees it. Because that's how strength is built, and the world needs strong men. Not through dominance, and not through noise, but through discipline. Here's the truth. There will always be Fisks in this world. Men who chase power without principle. Men who justify anything if it benefits them. And men who will bend their morality for control. But that's easy. But Daredevil, he chooses restraint, a code, and he chooses discipline even when it costs him. So the real question isn't whether the world is unfair, it's this: when the pressure hits, and when shit hits the fan, are you going to become a Fisk or a Daredevil? Be the man without fear and build from there.